that values thing is really, really important. The thing that, when I hear about like business partnerships that fall apart, it is usually around a values misalignment. Like somebody is like hungrier for money than somebody else, or somebody wants a different lifestyle that isn't compatible. And therefore there's an unfairness about like how things are divided up. We were looking at, well, what are the alternatives? What else is there out there, in the government funding? And we kept saying to the bank, look, this isn't going to be enough. We are going to need more funding. And they kept saying, oh, it's too early to talk to us. So talk to us near, we don't know what's going to happen. Talk to us down the road. And then we got to January 2022 and we went, look, this really is quite urgent now. Like, here's what we understand the schemes to be. And Barclays turned around to us and said, we need to let you know that we will no longer support this business. And it was like getting hit over the head with a hammer.
Hello, and welcome to the Travel Growth Podcast. I'm Tom McLaughlin, the founder of North9, and this is where I speak to successful travel business leaders and dig into the successes, challenges, and learnings from their experiences over the years. So you, the listener, can take away actionable advice to improve your own businesses and maybe even lives too. My guests today are the co-founders of Inside Travel Group, the powerhouse behind the award-winning Inside Japan and Inside Asia tours. Starting as two friends teaching English in Japan with a shared dream to share the real country they saw every day, they've spent the last 25 years building one of the most respected specialist tour operators in the world. Simon and Alistair have created a business that facilitates deep cultural immersion. From pioneering the cultural adventure niche to becoming a leading B Corp in the travel space, they've navigated everything from natural disasters to global lockdowns with a relentless focus on people and purpose. Today, they lead a global team across 3 continents, proving that you can scale a business without losing its soul. We cover a lot in this conversation, from the early spare bedroom days and the grit required to survive a pandemic, to their experience of working with private equity and how that's impacted the growth of the business, which was fascinating to hear about. And there's lots more in between. So I hope you enjoy this one. I think there's loads of fab stuff in there to take away and actionable things that you'll be able to use yourselves. So yeah, without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the founders of Inside Travel Group, Simon King and Alistair Donnelly. Simon, Alistair, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tom. Thank you for having us.
Hey, absolute pleasure to have you on. We're at a cool, interesting time for you with the 25th anniversary recently as well. So I appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk and I guess give us the background on what you've learned over the 25 years, the ups and the downs, the getting close to destruction. I think there's a 48 hours from it all going to pot along the way. So
something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, listen, I'm fascinated to dig into it in a bit more detail with you, and find out what you've learned along the way. First thing, I guess the way I start it is sort of talking about the journey to beginning the business, so people have a bit of context there. Maybe you could give us this sort of 5-minute potted history a little bit. You were obviously at uni together in Oxford. Take us from there to the point where you thought, hang on, maybe we could start a travel company here.
Sure thing. So we met in 1994. It's a long time ago now.
Really long time.
We were both doing history at University at Oxford. And the first time I met Alistair was when he walked into the welcome drinks for our small group of history undergraduates. Of course, he walked in late, but he struck a striking figure, and I thought, okay, interesting guy. I'll definitely have a chat with him. Afterwards.
It's probably the velvet jacket, the long hair, the like DM boots, the like black jeans.
You haven't changed a bit, Alistair.
I've still got the DMs on.
He had a lot more hair then. And I don't blame the business on you, Liz.
But no, that started before.
So what's that? 32 years ago.
Yeah.
We met, both doing history at university. I guess had a lot of common interests. So we're both into music and going to gigs. Struck up a friendship, and we both also wanted to live out. of university. So we had our first year in halls, but we wanted to live out. So we ended up living out together for 2 of the 3 years. So we were besties at uni.
Oh, I suppose so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a far cry from Japan, though.
It is. And so basically, like, a lot of people who go to Oxford University, there's like a really established road, like you go into like the civil service or management consultancy, or if you've done like, maybe a science degree, you'll go into like research or like one of the bio kind of companies or something like that. So there's a lot of established kind of career paths for people coming out of that. And that had absolutely no interest for me whatsoever. I kind of looked at journalism, didn't get any placements that I applied for, that sort of thing. And then an opportunity came up to, with our college, to apply for a couple of jobs teaching English in Toyota City in Japan. Now, I'd done a bit of Japanese history as part of my degree. And we all got these notices, that were like, oh, interested in this, drop a line to Dr. Powell. So me and Simon were like, oh, this sounds all right, doesn't it? This sounds better than the milk round and like going to work for IBM or something like that. So we both applied for that job, and Simon got it and I didn't. Is the long and short of that. So Simon had the excitement of going off September, 1997, and going off to Japan and like starting this new life, teaching English out in Toyota City. And what I did was I went and got a job in a BT call center, working for Talking Pages, the yellow pages on the phone. It's a great employment for
the glamour,
my, given my efforts of 3 years at Oxford University. So yeah, I was doing that. Simon was out in Japan with another friend of ours who did get the position. When that guy, Dan, decided that it wasn't for him, he quit for love. He missed his girlfriend, moved back to the UK, and they were short of an English teacher.
So I suggested they get in touch with
I know a guy.
Alistair.
Yeah,
I know a guy. How about you get in touch?
The reject?
I'm not sure I mentioned that bit, but I suggested they get in touch with Alistair.
Yeah.
Mr. Suzuki, our supervisor, was incredibly relieved because Dan quitting was about the worst thing that could have happened to him after just a couple of months in the job.
Yeah.
So we had a chat with Alistair. Al had to get his driving license, which was a little bit of a palaver because he failed the first time round, but then thankfully did an intensive course.
All the best people passed the second.
Yeah,
right.
I've heard.
And ended up coming out in February
1998. So we've just passed my Japaniversary, which is the 21st of February.
Yeah,
and I always
amazing.
mark it every year at home. A little glass of sake, and
love it. And how long was that stint then? So the teaching was that a year that you were doing that?
2.5 years for Al, 3 years for me.
Okay.
Amazing job, amazing experience. We had a lot of fun. The teaching itself was really great. We're teaching at junior high school, so teaching sort of young
12 to 15-year-olds, like just conversational English.
Really? Yeah, okay.
And learning a lot of Japanese off them, learning a lot of them. But we also had a good chance to travel around the country.
Explore the country, go to some amazing places. Like, and we did cool stuff like climb Mount Fuji, go up to some national parks, explore all the kind of like lots of hot spring bath resorts, that kind of stuff.
So falling in love with Japan, basically.
Like, yeah, and the thing that nobody told us before we went, right? Everyone talks about, Japan is like really like alien culture. It's going to be really difficult. Like the Japanese are super polite, like all this kind of stuff. What nobody mentioned was that it's the most fun place in the world. It's just incredibly fun. Like so many enjoyable things to do.
Yeah.
So much exciting culture to explore, but just the everyday. It was like super entertaining for a couple of guys in their early 20s. Like amazing music scene, amazing, like you go karaoke, you go bowling, amazing food scene, like and affordable food scene as well.
Yeah,
that was the other myth that everyone had told. You're going to be broke. It's like so expensive. You're not going to have any money to do anything. And then you turn up and you're like, oh, actually my salary goes a really, really long way.
Right.
So it was just getting into it, learning the language, making a lot of Japanese friends,
So
Just
I guess
inspiring times.
there's a lot of people who go and teach. I went and taught abroad as well after school. Not everyone then goes and makes a travel company that goes and visits there. So join the dots that kind of connect having that amazing experience and loving the place to we want to go and do this and take other people there.
Well, when we finished up our job in Toyota City teaching English, we did make a promise. We had a ceremony at the end of of our stint.
Oh, yeah.
I think the mayor was there and our supervisor, and we made a promise to promote Japan and Toyota City to the world. And so, sort of looking back on things, I like to think we probably fulfilled that promise.
You've done all right, yeah.
We possibly could.
So you were people of our word and of high integrity, you see.
That's it. But we finished up our stint doing some Japanese study in Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, which is famous for its winter sports skiing. We were there in the summer when they have an amazing beer festival. Great mountains up there.
A month-long beer festival. What's not to like about that?
Exactly. But so we were studying Japanese for a month or so up there, and then we travelled back to the UK the long way. So we flew to Hong Kong, took the train up through China, and then took the Trans-Siberian train across Russia. And in Russia, we did a small group tour called the Beetroot Bus.
It's a little pun there on borscht being beetroot and beaten trout. Yeah, it's good.
Exactly. And it was kind of during that journey that we thought, this is really good fun. It's a really great way of seeing a country. An amazing tour leader or tour buddy, and she was
Elena.
She was called, and we thought this is a really great way of seeing a country having a lot of fun and getting a bit beneath the surface.
And a country that's quite difficult, right? Like Russia's not an easy place to visit. This was in 2000. This was 1 month after Putin took over. So just coming out of that Yeltsin era, like there was a kind of degree of anarchy, I suppose, about Russia at that time. But yeah, really difficult place. A lot of barriers, right?
Yeah.
There's a language barrier. There's a big cultural barrier. There's an economic barrier. And what our tour buddy Elena did was just break all that down.
So you were sat there on that tour thinking, we could do this for Japan. Was it there?
Much.
Was it already in your head at that point?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
It was forming in our head. I know we had a fair bit more time because we travelled back through Europe on the train as well to think about it. But that's really what sparked it. And so the initial plan was to run some small group tours in Japan and see how we got on.
And it was small, you know, that Beetroot bus trip was like 6 people. So really intimate and you got to know everybody really well. And again, it was fun. And one of the things we always return back to is that travel should be fun.
Yeah.
You should enjoy yourself, right? That's why people go on holiday, is to enjoy themselves.
So you connect some of the dots between you can see there's potential here. Oh, it'd be good to do this for Japan. To how do you actually run your first trip? Because again, that still seems like a leap.
Yeah. How does that happen? I remember we got back to the UK on the 1st of October 2000. And we came into London on the Eurostar, and then Simon went off down to Dorchester and I went off to Bristol. And we said, right, we should think about setting up this business. And we communicated a bit back and forth. And on the 20th of basically after a couple of weeks, we put in our submission to Companies House. And we were incorporated on the 20th of October 2000. And it's amazing how fast you can do stuff when you don't know the rules, when you don't know what you should be doing, because you just do what you think is right and you can move at real pace. So we co-opted our friend Ayako, who we'd met we'd met in an indie club, in a British indie music club in Japan back in 1998. We co-opted her and said, hey, can you do a bit of research for us? We need some stuff on accommodation in all these different areas. We started piecing it together. After a month, I got an old friend of mine from school who wanted to make a career in web development, but he didn't have a good portfolio. So we got him to build us a website. he did that for us. Like, we started writing articles on Japanese culture, put together the group tour itineraries, priced it all up, took out 6 weeks of little tiny ads in The Guardian. And then on the 1st of February 2001, we had a tiny little 2x2 stand at the Destinations Travel Show in London. And that was our launch. Simon was out researching still over in Japan. He was out like testing the tour route, going to the accommodations, seeing what it was like with Ayako. And I was there manning the stand with a couple of friends. And that was how it all began.
Amazing. And did you fill the trips in a fairly straightforward way? Was it like a struggle? Like, how was that first part of like, right, let's get some people and actually get them over to Japan?
It was a crazy time really then on the web, because, not many travel companies had websites in 2000. That's really hard to imagine now, right? When the web is just completely all around us, like, yeah, you breathe, right? And so you put your website up and then you're like, I wonder what's going to happen. Like, I wonder if anyone's going to get in touch. So it was about 5 weeks before we had an inquiry, but somebody inquired. And this is an interesting part of the story, really, because as Simon said, we set up as group tours, right? And we had 3 group tour itineraries, but our first inquiry wasn't for a group tour at all. It was from a lady, I think an American lady, who was going to Kyushu, is that right? For a conference?
That's right, for a conference, and wants some what we now know is called tailor-made arrangements. Didn't know that back then. So we looked at that and thought, could we do that? Yeah.
Yes.
So
say yes.
Yeah.
Right. It's a good lesson in business. If someone asks you if you can do something, often it's good to say yes and then work out how.
Yeah. Can you ride a horse? Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So we did that. And that was our first bit of business. But how many people did you have on the first group tours? Alistair led the first group tours that summer.
So first tour was 5 paying customers. And I met them at the airport. So that was the model. Like, they booked the trip and then one of us would meet them at the airport in Japan. So we took the bookings, did the chat, met them at the airport, took them on the trip. The interesting tale, though, of our first is actually we had 6 people booked on our first tour. And the first person didn't arrive. The first person who ever booked on one of our tours, due to arrive, didn't turn up at the airport. And I phoned up Simon on some dodgy, internet-based phone that was like terrible quality. And I'm like, Simon, the customer isn't here. Like, can you try and find out where she is? And Simon tried it repeatedly. We emailed, we called, couldn't get in contact with her. And that is the only no-show customer we've ever had in 25 years.
Wow.
So the first customer was a no-show. Thankfully, the other 5 did turn up.
Yeah, good.
We spent 2 weeks together.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
So let's go forward then, because I think that sets it up really nicely from it's so nice and interesting to hear someone building something up from literally a blank sheet of paper. Like you said, just do what you think is right, kind of make it up as you go along. And then,
it's worth saying we had £5,000 of savings each that we put in.
Okay.
So it's a 10 grand startup.
Yeah. And to take it to where it is now, which is, as we said, 25th anniversary, hugely successful, big team, like is pretty incredible. So fast forward to now, tell us about the business as it looks today in terms of people, destinations, however you think relevant to show that off.
Well, we don't lead the tours anymore.
A big difference. Yeah. We did tour leading for 7-8 years. Really good fun. But we've got an amazing team of insiders who lead the group tours. And group tours is about 20% of the business. Rest is tailor-made. We're now Inside Travel Group as a company, with the original Inside Japan brand for our Japan trips, and Inside Asia for a number of countries that we look after in Asia. Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, South Korea, Thailand, Malaysia, Borneo, Singapore, Hong Kong,
India.
and India is the latest addition to that. So we've moved beyond Japan. We have 4 offices around the world. So our headquarters here in Bristol, sales offices in the US and Australia, and our operations office still headed up by Ayako, our friend that we met in the Indie Club all those years ago, in Nagoya, which is next to Toyota City in Japan. So still in the same location in Japan after all these years.
Yeah, fantastic.
And last year we looked after around 16,000 traveling customers, about £80 million turnover. So the business has grown a lot from that £10,000 5-person first tour.
300 employees globally,
Yes.
something like that. Yeah,
That's right.
So amazing growth. This is going to set us off into all different directions now. So I'm gonna try and pick carefully which way I go first. One is the going from a specialist in a country to a multi-brand, multi-destination company. So tell me a bit more about that decision. Why did you choose to go into other destinations? How was that process? How did you find it? Did you do it in a different way to how you did it with Japan in terms of going and starting from scratch on the ground? Like, yeah, I'm fascinated to sort of understand how you thought about that.
It's a long story, Tom. How long you got?
Well, about an hour.
It's been a real challenge.
Yeah.
So for the first 11 years of the company's life, we were just Japan. So up until 2012. In 2011, Japan suffered the Tohoku earthquake, tsunami, nuclear disaster, which was incredibly tough for everybody affected there. I think, was it 20,000 lives lost?
Yeah, no region.
And obviously meant no travel. And it was really tough for our team. You know, we were probably about 50 people then, something like that.
Much fewer than that. Yeah, it's more like 17, 18.
Yeah. But everybody had that really close connection with Japan. So it was a really, really tough time. We wanted to support Japan. We did some amazing stuff raising funds for relief efforts in Tohoku at that time. We raised about £20,000 or so. But it also made us think, you know, for the businesses,
resilience.
Yeah, resilience. We should look at other destinations as well.
And our customers kept asking us. Our customers kept going, "Oh, is there anywhere else that you offer?" And we were like, "No, we're the Japan people."
Yeah, there's a big thing.
This company or this company, and then it kind of struck us like this is madness.
Yeah, there's a big thing.
Yes.
The idea of like repeat customers, and obviously in travel, if you have one destination, and particularly I guess when it's Japan and it's a for a lot of people it's a bit of a bucket. It's not like you're going to Spain every year or something. You know that often would be a once in a lifetime type of a trip for people, wouldn't it? So yeah, you are a bit limited.
Yeah, I mean there's a choice, isn't that really? You can go incredibly deep and broad in one country. And we were doing that to an extent. So through the years, we've done school trips, we've done winter sports, we've done scuba diving, we've done cycling trips, we've done some pretty serious hiking trips, as well as what our core business now is, cultural adventures, which is sightseeing, cultural experiences and a slice of local life. That's our core now. But we took the decision that we would focus on that kind of trip for Japan. And that's the sort of trip that we could take to other destinations. And like you say, through that, get repeat customers and be able to say yes to those customers that were asking us for other destinations.
And sort of share that love of travel a bit wider. You're right. You know, some people do want to go back to Japan every year, but there's a whole world out there. Like, it's sort of, you know, the crazy, beautiful diversity of like this world that we live in. And we looked at the business and we went, well, why don't we offer another country? Why don't we see how that goes? We've got lots of travel experience in the business. We got people who've got experience of the travel industry in other countries. So out of that, we decided to start inside Vietnam.
Okay.
When we went, and you asked like about, did we go the kind of same approach? And we thought, okay, we've had this really successful single country approach for the Inside Japan brand. We will replicate that approach, and we will create an Inside Vietnam brand. We'll go for that same kind of level of depth and detail, and like really like celebrate everything about Vietnam, because it is a country of unbelievable depth and extraordinary history, like both that ancient history that links to China through to like more modern day, through the kind of period of the American War, and then the economic advancement has happened. It's a very young country, so there's so much fascination about it. So we thought that's what we'll do.
Yeah, we went on a really, really cool research trip
Yeah.
together. So that was a bit like the early days of the business. We were
Yeah.
going out there and discovering the places to go, the places to stay, the experiences to have together.
And we brought in a guy called Tom Weston from who came to us from one of our major competitors, Audley Travel. And he'd been there and done that, setting up new destinations, actually really, really understood how to make that work, how to make the sales teams work. And so he came and joined the business. And that was great to have almost like a new business partner for like me and Simon, someone with that great experience and knowledge and passion coming in to help us launch into that new destination. And that went pretty well at first. Like we achieved growth up to, nearly £1 million, which was kind of about 15% of the total business. And we did that in about 18 months.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
it went well. We then started to realize, though, the limitations of the model that we'd gone with. For starters, a lot of people who go to Vietnam also want to go to Cambodia and also want to go to Laos. And inside Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos is very snappy. And we'd had to add that on to kind of like the logo to the but the brand was still called Inside, it's still called Inside Vietnam Tours.
Okay.
And then you're out there in Cambodia and you're trying to meet suppliers and do negotiations, and you hand over your business card and it says Inside Vietnam on it. So some of these kind of practical considerations started to really bite. And then we were looking at expanding further. We're like, okay, so if we want to do another destination, what do we have to do? Okay, well, we have to do a whole new brand development. We have to launch a new website. We need to build up those kind of search rankings from zero. We need to. We'd created a model that had an enormous hurdle to get over.
Yeah.
And when we started talking to our customers about this, whereas they really, really valued the country specialism for Japan, they looked for it, they could understand, and that was what they wanted. It was almost too specialist. It didn't really mean anything to them. It was like, well, yeah, I like the kind of specialism, but I also want you to know about other countries in Asia because I want to combine the trip. And actually, I want to come back to you next year for a trip to Thailand. And that was when we started thinking, okay, this level of, we love the specialist model, but this is too specialist.
Yeah. How long was the
not
journey
connecting with the customer
from what sort of starting inside Vietnam to realizing that and starting inside Asia?
Took a while, didn't it?
Yeah, that was quite a long time, wasn't it? Really. So we officially moved over to Inside Asia
2018. So 5 years that took.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And part of the reason for that is we launched these new brands and they grew up to that kind of £1 million mark really quite quickly. Then we had some issues with the Google algorithm, crushed our search rankings, and we never recovered. It wasn't, I remember the update. It was targeted at pharmaceutical companies, but we got hit in the kind of wash of that, really.
Yeah.
We never got those rankings back. So that really was a struggle.
And we did launch a second specialist brand inside Burma.
Inside Burma. And then,
unfortunately, the political situation in Burma meant that did really well. And Burma, Myanmar is an amazing country to visit.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult situation they're in. And we really hoped to be able to go back there before too long. And that was doing quite well as well, but the political situation then
changed, and
meant that
then
we couldn't do
and
trips
then you
there.
had
So
to remove that. So during that period, though, that 5-year period, our Japan brand was going like this. It was almost like hockey stick growth. It was
Right.
extraordinary. It went from, in 2012, we were there on turning over, about 12 million pounds. And you get to like 2018 and we're turning over like 36 million pounds.
Wow.
So it's 3 times in that kind of 5-year period. 2019, you drove up to 50 million.
Yeah.
so you've got this really strong
Powerhouse brand, like.
and then these other country brands that are struggling a bit. And so it was that made us think, okay, well, it's going to be best to consolidate those into Inside Asia. And that's where we created Inside Asia for the other Asia brands. We've got the Japan brand that makes sense. It works. It's well known.
Customers value it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a bit of risk mitigation there as well, that folding that into the overall picture is like you say, when it's doing so well and has done so well, it's there is a risk there.
And I think you always have to answer the customers, don't you? What does the market want? What do customers value? What do they tell you that they value about who you are and what you do? And our customers consistently tell us they value that Japan specialism.
Yeah.
Like it's something that resonates with them. So that's doing very, very well over here. People also like the idea of booking with an Asia specialist. So, how do you stand out in the market, Tom? Like you've got some great generalist travel businesses, but you're thinking, I want to go to Thailand. And you're there on a search engine and one says like, Abercrombie and Kent, and one says Inside Asia. It's like, okay, I'm going to give those Asia people a go.
Yeah, it's your
That's
differentiator.
what they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's part of the model there and part of the way that we approach the market.
It's fascinating. Like, we've had multiple people that we've worked with who have gone from that one specialist country to sort of through the process of, I'm going to add another country and another country, and then the realization of, this is a lot of work if we try and do it for sort of 7 different countries, 7 different websites and all of those kind of things. So I think that's a great learning for people who are listening to this, who maybe are a bit earlier in their journey, that, maybe they can avoid that mucky middle and just thinking forward. Like, I think if you're sticking with one destination or one specific type of travel or something, then, that's great. But if you're thinking about growing and you can look a little bit further forward and you're thinking, we're going to become 5 or 10 countries, it's definitely better to then switch out and have one brand that it sits under. I think we've seen that play out many times with people that we've worked with as well.
I think so. Find the level of find the level of specialism that is right for your business. So for us, we really value that specialism aspect, which is, where we started with being real Japan specialists. But for the Asia countries, for Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, South Korea, we had to find the right level of specialism. We believe that sits within being an Asia specialist rather than necessarily just a South Korea or just a Vietnam specialist. So it's finding that level. I think what we feel is there's space out there for some really good travel generalists, but there's also space out there for a really good
and large specialist.
And that's what we are building, and that's what we want to build, and that's what drives us.
Yeah, amazing. Let's take it just because I think what another really interesting part of your growth has been, I touched on it at the start, the kind of, obviously COVID hit the industry massively, and I know you had a moment of like, we're pretty close to the wire here, and at some point along the way that triggered some investment, and then you've kind of had a few to and froing of like with investment and private equity and things like that. Maybe you could take us through that part of the journey and where you're at with it, and I guess what happened. I think it's just an interesting insight from the things that you've been through.
It's been an incredible 6 years, and it's probably been the 6 years where we've grown as business owners and business people the most, and when we've learned the most. And part of that's because we've had to, but we've also had our eyes opened to other worlds in travel and in business because of what happened. So really difficult, but we've come out as a better business. So we can talk a bit about how we got there.
Yeah. So COVID, did it actually happen?
I try not to say that word that often on this thing, but there's always some part of the journey where it's like, oh, you can't. Yeah. The one who shall not be spoken.
Let's think about, where were we at? January 2020. So we came out of 2019, most successful year ever. We turned over £49.5 million. I was disappointed we didn't quite make it to 50, but £49.5 million. That was 23% year-on-year growth. We had just delivered an unbelievable program for the Rugby World Cup. Nearly 2,500 fans traveling with us to Japan to support their rugby team during that tournament. We did some extraordinary group tours. We had ex-pros doing like talks. It was super fun. It was a real moment. We also headline sponsor for the ABTA conference that was in Tokyo that year during the Rugby World Cup. It was all going on, right? It was all going on. Business, most profitable year for the business. I delivered a bottom line of £3.5 million. Things look like they're on the up, right? Continuing on the up. But going into January 2020, there were some systemic problems with the business. We were looking at our budget for 2020 and going, we're going to struggle to break even on this budget. We had increased the size of the team rapidly. We had just over 200 members of staff, and we didn't really have a plan for how we were going to bring in the growth that would fund that, that kind of like, baked in cost that we had. So we certainly had some challenges going into 2020. And then within a week or so of the new year, obviously very important booking period. It's when you really are starting to see it ramp up. Within about a week, we started getting customers going, what about this like news out of China? And we were like, yeah, don't worry about that. And then we went and started to look at it more seriously. And we were like, we kind of felt it in the post very early, much earlier than the rest of the industry.
Yeah.
There was a cruise ship in Yokohama Bay, Diamond Princess, where there was a COVID outbreak in, I think, February. And that really hit the news, and suddenly it was all Japan. It was all Japan. COVID was Japan.
For that period.
And so, it quite quickly hit our bookings. It quite quickly started causing cancellations. And we could see this was going to be a big issue. What we didn't know was
how long.
Yeah, how long it would last for. We had some experience to draw on from the 2011 tsunami that I mentioned earlier, which we used to sort of put in place policies and processes for how we handle things.
Communication with the customers. We actually went back to some of those comms that we'd issued in 2011. And we just repurposed almost exactly the same stuff that we'd used then, very effective.
Yeah, right.
So we had a couple of things in our favour. We had a fair amount of money in the bank because we'd done very well for many years.
And not taken anything out.
Yeah. We'd also taken on a business coach. So as Alistair said, at the end of 2019 into 2020, there were some challenges with the business and we were not quite sure where things were going. And we were introduced to Gary Keating, our coach from Action Coach Bristol, and started seeing him.
Best decision we've ever made.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've worked with Action Coach as well, actually. Yeah, and found it great.
So
very helpful.
It wasn't where he envisaged taking us.
No.
So we first met him in December 2019 and then into January. But the guidance, support,
challenge
that we got through the pandemic from that was invaluable. It became apparent for us in the summer of 2020 that this was a major, major impact on the business. And we determined that we were going to need some help to keep the business going, and that we needed also to take advantage of this time to really think about the business,
Mm.
and that we wanted to come out, because we knew it would end, we just didn't know when. We wanted to come out as a better business, keeping as much of the institutional knowledge in the business as we could.
Mm.
And that was our COVID mission that we shared with the team, was that we will come out of the pandemic a better business
Yeah.
than we went into it, and in a strong position to take advantage of the bounce back.
Yeah.
Because everyone knew, coming out of something where travel has been restricted, you're going to get a real surge of interest. And that was what we started to do, was think about how we needed to change and reshape the business whilst it was shut. And, we didn't have the noise of everyday trading and travel.
Yeah.
How do we need to reshape it so that we could deliver on that COVID mission and our objective?
And
we got.
No, I was just going to say, did you go hunting for investment? Was that kind of there? Were those options around? At what point did that come onto the radar as the plan?
So summer 2020, we started piecing together some ideas for what this could look like. And we got the whole senior team to submit ideas to us, like kind of outline ideas for ways we could change the business. We started to look at the structure of the business. Summer, we had to very sadly do our first round of redundancies. We were clear that, we can't support the staff at this size. And of course, we had global staff. So there were always different schemes globally to support businesses. But ultimately, we couldn't have that amount going out on the payroll. So we did a first round of redundancies that downsized the organization by 25% in the summer. And we started to think seriously about, what are our options? If this goes on for a long time, at some point we are going to need more money. And so that was when we first floated the idea that if we get to the start of next year, so the start of 2021, and there is no end in sight, we will go out and find investment. So that was the kind of decision that we took in the summer.
And that's obviously how things panned out. There was no travel still at the start of 2021 and no prospect. So we engaged KPMG to work with us on a minority investment
equity raise.
Equity raise, and had a really, really supportive partner in Bristol, a guy called Tim Spooner, who walked us through that, put together a really great information memorandum prospectus, and started that process.
And it was, we had to do another round of redundancies at the back end of 2020, and that took us down to just under 100 staff. So we'd cut the size of the business by 50%.
Yeah.
And what we told the team, the remaining team, was that there will be no more redundancies. We're like, this is it. You're here. If you're with us for the ride, we're with you. And we will go out and find some money. And that is what we told them. And I think quite a lot of them thought we were a bit mad. Like, what do you mean? No one's going to give us any money. We're in the middle of a pandemic. But they backed us. The remaining team backed us and supported us. And I'm eternally grateful for that faith that the team showed in us as a business. And we had people say to us that, I'm with you. If we go down, we go down together. And that, it gets you right there, right? Because that is an incredible thing for somebody to say and to support you. So we started getting this equity raise going. We talked to Tim and, wow, what a learning curve, right? Like when you haven't lived in that world at all, trying to get up to speed on all the different ways that people invest and how you have to present your business and like prepping it to be suitable when you're don't have any trading going on. And Tim asked one very, very valuable question. And I remember it. We went to a bar in Bristol for a lunch to talk through what was required. And he said, why is your profit the profit? What drives it? How? And I said, well, we sell holidays, we make bookings, there's profit on it. And he went, yeah, but why is the profit on each booking the profit that it is? What are the drivers? And I was like, God, that's a difficult question. I was like, I'd never thought about it. I'd never, ever thought about it. Like, what was adding up to that gross profit on each booking? It was just like, well, you buy the services for this, you mark them up, and then you sell it. So out of that, I started to really explore the data in the business. I've never done that. Started to teach myself some data analysis things. What could the data tell us about our business, about how we made money, about the different segments, about our repeat, about recommend, about the different brands and destinations, and importantly, why is the profit the profit? And out of that question came this little equation that I don't know why we were working to it before, but we'd never thought of it because we'd never been asked, which was like, okay, your profit is your profit. And I'm going to share this because no one told us, but it's the same for every travel business who does what we do. You've got your average number of passengers per booking. You've got your average spend per person per night, and you've got the average number of nights that they travel for. And you add those three things together, and that is your gross profit. That's your turnover, and then your gross profit is the margin percentage that you're making. So you've got those four levers there that you can play with. Oh, can I up the average number of passengers? Can I up the amount of money they're spending per person per night? Can I get them to stay for longer? And can I increase my margin percentage? And this was like a penny drop moment. For me and Simon, we're like, wow. Okay, well, these are things we can then target. We can build a business plan around this stuff. So that was really, really interesting. And, I'd encourage all business owners to answer that question. Why is your profit the profit that it is?
So when you were having those conversations, you came up with that formula as an output. Was there anything else that you took from your conversations with, was it Tim, you said, from
Tim,
KPMG? Who, to I guess set this thing up. And then at what point, tell me then what happened did you have lots of people coming to you saying like, oh yeah, we're interested in this, and you were choosing between them? Or was it one of those things that it was like, oh, there's this one person we've really got to impress them, try and get them on board?
Well, what Alistair was talking about just now, the kind of formula for how you make revenue and profit in a travel business, that informed creating a financial model. So we'd have a financial model going out a few years to show the potential profit in the business to investors. And that's a really important part.
How we could scale.
Yeah. And that's a really important part of what you're putting together. This business is scalable. It could be profitable. That's part of the story. The other part of the story is more about the vision. It's more about what makes you special as a business, what attracts your customers, what's your proposition, your value proposition. And that's where talking with Tim and going through the process, talking with our business coach and doing a lot of learning really came in. So we really worked up a very clear vision for the business of where we wanted to get to, which was to create a global cultural adventure tour operator. And we came up with that niche of cultural adventure, which is, where we felt our product, our experience, what we wanted to provide customers and what customers were looking for, where that sat was cultural adventure. And so those things came together, and, we needed all of those elements to create a compelling case for anybody to invest in us.
Yeah. It was an extraordinary process, really, and journey to go through of really that deep dive into every element of your business. What makes you special? What makes you a good proposition? What made us, the Piper thing, who are our current investors, what makes you better and different? And Tim really helped us distill that and capture what made this business special.
Now, the actual process of finding investors was not a smooth one against the backdrop of the pandemic and Japan, which was, by far our largest destination, about 90% of the business or so, taking a long time to come out and really very few green shoots of.
Well, I mean, they had the most closed border in the world.
Yeah. So
For inbound.
we spoke to a lot of companies,
a lot of private equity people, few trade as well.
and the feedback.
Fireside chats.
Yeah.
That was new terminology for us. Oh, we're going to have a fireside chat. Sounds so nice.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
There was absolutely no firesides.
No fire, no whiskey, no cigars, no cheese, no port.
None of that. But we did get pretty good at doing our presentation.
We did, yeah.
Talking about the vision for the business, going through the business plan. And, the feedback we got was, yeah, this is a really great business. We can see that.
Come back to us when Japan's open.
Yeah. We don't want to invest now.
Yeah.
Invest now. And time went on.
It was looking encouraging. Like Japan started to allow, like they said, oh, we're going to allow some business travel, and like they started all these things about like this is like 2021. So you're getting towards sort of October 21, and they're like, oh, we're going to reopen, and we're like, oh, this is good. Like,
but every day's survival at that point, right? Isn't it? So I guess as much as you're wanting the investment from a growth point of view, and you're putting Prezes together, but you've got a ticking time bomb kind of thing. You're
watching the money, the bank balance go down, and we knew that what we needed to make our investment proposition as it stood as a minority investment in this business that was going to grow out of COVID, to make this work, we needed our spring season 2022 to run. Right? That was what we needed. And it was all looking good until, and this is, I'm sorry to bring these horrific words that will traumatize your listeners. Omicron came along. Do you remember the Omicron variant? Like,
just wiped it all from my brain now. I've got some sort of PTSD that it doesn't register.
Autumn, getting towards Christmas 2022, this new variant turned up and started spreading like wildfire. Japan said, no way, we're not opening. That's done. And at that point, we were like, huh.
Well, we're just sponsored the ATO Agents Conference in Hinkley Island. So we were headline sponsors. And, this was part of our relaunch, and it's great. Yeah. Japan's going to be open in spring. Let's get going again. Let's do it. It was that weekend of that conference that Omicron came along, and we were like, oh.
Brutal. And I remember the first swing of COVID. I mean, it was around now, wasn't it? At the time of year wise, and it's my birthday in a couple of weeks, and I remember that thing just sort of flooding in around my birthday. So I've got this. Well, you've got that conference reference. I've got that as the kind of start and rollout of COVID. So I know that feeling.
So that the fact in the end we couldn't run that spring 2022 program, and so we were still on the rebooking, refunding, kind of, and paying staff, money going out of the business. Things then started to get very difficult, and the bank started to get difficult with us.
Tight. And the bank, we've been looking at additional funding. So we'd taken a CL bills, the coronavirus large business interruption loan scheme. I think that's the full CL bills. So we'd taken a £3.5 million loan through that. And obviously administered through Barclays Bank, who were our bank at the time. And we were looking at, well, what are the alternatives? What else is there out there, in the government funding? And we kept saying to the bank, look, this isn't going to be enough. We are going to need more funding. And they kept saying, oh, it's too early to talk to us. So talk to us near, we don't know what's going to happen. Talk to us down the road. And then we got to January 2022 and we went, look, this really is quite urgent now. Like, here's what we understand the schemes to be. And Barclays turned round to us and said, we need to let you know that we will no longer support this business.
Right. Wow.
And it was like getting hit over the head with a hammer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like the shock of it, because they'd, up to that point, they'd just been like, no, we're going to back you. Yeah, talk to us. We'll look at additional funding. Yeah, it's definitely on the cards. And then they just turn around and close that door overnight.
So when does the angel come out in the sky and bring some
I don't know
happiness
if
to things?
Blanford Capital would call themselves angels.
They
They
might
might
do.
do.
So the process of, it was no longer looking for a minority investor. It was now what they call a distressed situation.
Accelerated M&A.
And we actually moved to a different person in KPMG whose specialism this was, a lady called Amanda.
Ironically, as we pointed out to her.
As stands for accelerated M&A,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Right, yes. Wow.
So she's definitely doing the right job on many fronts, because again, she was brilliant. And that's the other sort of consistent thing through this is great advisors
Who've got your back.
are worth so much.
Yeah.
You need people to have your back. If you're in any kind of whether it's a distressed situation like ours, or if it's you're trying to do an exit or something like that, you need people in your corner who are going to fight for you and fight for your business as hard as you're going to fight for it.
Yeah.
And you've got to have that trust.
And you've got to have that trust. And it's without a doubt, without Tim Spooner and without Amanda, the business would have gone down.
Yeah. So did she bring Bamford to the table?
Well, no. So during the process, we had pitched to Piper Private Equity, and Piper brought with them Ian Simpkins. And Ian Simpkins was the former CEO of our biggest competitor, Audley Travel. And it was like a strange moment when Ian came down to our office for that presentation, because he was like, "Hi, Ian Simpkins." And he goes, I went, "Oh, Ian, Audley Ian." And he went, "Yes, that's right." And he went, "I've always wanted to meet you guys." So I'm like, "Yeah, it's interesting to meet you." So he'd been brought by Piper because he was chairman of one of our other investments in travel. A business called The Thinking Traveller, and you deal with villas, really, really lovely villas in Italy primarily. Yeah. And they it wasn't for them, right? They like to take a considered longer term approach to their investments, get to know people. It was the timetable was too tight for them. But Ian went away and he went, "Look, this business is too good to go down." So he started asking around in his network, and he was having lunch. And that would have been with David Wiseman. He's having lunch with an old associate with his. They worked together a bit at Audley, and he said, "David, do you know anyone? There's this great business, it can't go down. They're our best competitor when I was working at Audley. They got great, really well run. It's great product. Do you know anyone?" And David Wiseman went, "Do you know what? Actually, I do. I work with these three guys, run a fund called Blanford Capital, and they deal in special situations." It's good.
Good euphemism.
Good euphemism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
So David talked to Blanford, and Blanford said, "Yeah, let's set up a meeting." So they got in touch with Amanda, and Amanda went through all the details with them, and we got Blanford on a call, and we did a pitch for an hour. And the next day they went, "Yeah, okay, we're in."
Wow, amazing.
Which was wow to us. We must have spent hundreds of hours talking to people and pitching and all this sort of stuff to no avail. And they said, "Yeah, let's see if we can make this happen."
And then I guess to bring this to where we are today, you've gone through a process where I think did you buy some of the business back, and then then your Piper have come in. So fill in the blanks a little bit with that, and then I'm interested just to get your overall perspective on, I guess, getting backing, like, and support, and how, your feelings about that.
Yeah. So Blanford came in June 2022. And Japan was still not open at that time, but the prospects of opening started to get better.
Yeah.
And Japan reopened in the autumn of 2022. And so we got a program up and running again. We had really good support from the guys at Blanford Capital, really good investors. And they, they specialize in businesses that go through a tough time, but essentially are good businesses. And this is what they do. They invest in those businesses, and then they exit when that business is recovered.
And it's worth spending in just like telling what the terms of that deal were, right? Because originally we were looking to sell, say, 30-40% of the business. Blanford, well, they ended up with like 80%. They put just about 11% into a management incentive plan. Me and Simon bought back in, so we participated in the deal. We basically begged and borrowed in order to get the cash together, like to buy back in. The amount of money that went in total was £4 million. We were like, this will be enough. And Blanford were like, we're not sure it will be. But that was where it ended up, then with 80 and us with 20. And with a kind of ratchet, depending on the amount of money they made at exit, that could get to about 30% ownership through management and the wider management team, and 70% from Blanford.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So they were
that was the deal. That was the deal with them. Japan reopened. We got the programs up and running again. People traveling, starting to make some money again. Fast forward to summer of 2023.
So 1 year.
Yeah.
Just 1 year after.
1 year in, we had a strategy day up in London at the Blanford offices. But the day wasn't really about the strategy day. So we did all that. The day was about going to the pub afterwards, as these days always are, right? We went to the pub afterwards, and the guys bought us a few drinks.
And Nathaniel tapped me on the shoulder. He went, Alistair, let's I just want to have a quick word. And it's a very noisy full pub, right? Like loads of people in it. Like, and then he taps me. Again, we stand in the sort of like doorway. He's like, we think that it's time to move on. You've done much better than we expected. And the smart thing to do in this game is get out. And I was like, He's like, I just want you to go away and think about that.
Yeah.
And he went and tapped Simon on the shoulder. It's Simon.
So they were just there for the saviours, come in and do the distress situation, and then they felt it wasn't the distress situation anymore. Time to move on.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. And, travel is a risky business, right? Things happen. And we all know that. So quite wise of them.
I mean, we weren't happy about it at first. Like, being honest, it was like, having been through so much disruption and so much turmoil, we just wanted some stability.
Yeah, I guess it feels like you're back to the start again there, right?
Back on the treadmill. We knew like how hard it was going to be, having done it once, and we knew it was going to be just as hard the second time.
More fireside chats, Tom.
Yeah, more fireside chat without firesides, minus the fireside. Yeah. So when did they at that point, they're saying we want to sell, but I guess because it's not all down to you anymore because of how that was set up. Is that right?
It's totally their choice. And
yeah, I mean, with these things, they needed us on board.
Yeah.
So without us and the management team, then there was, there's no business there. So they needed us on board, but it was their choice. And I think, after some good discussions, reflection,
we were like, okay, you're right.
Yeah. Okay, let's do this.
You're right. Yeah, and one of the reasons they gave, which was like really valid and is relevant for people thinking about like investors, investment and thing, is they really do specialize in turnaround. So they're completely sector agnostic. They invest in all sorts of different businesses, and they didn't bring much value for us in the travel space.
Yeah.
They were really supportive of us. They really supported us in our recovery plan. They didn't interfere too much. in terms of like, they would review our plans, they'd suggest improvements and things, but they were just like, you guys get on with it. You know what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay.
But then they said, look, we're not a growth partner. This
Yeah.
isn't what we do. This, you need someone who can bring more value to the table than us. And at first I didn't want to hear that message, but when I reflected on it for, 2 or 3 months, I was like, okay, yeah, they're probably right.
This makes sense. Yeah.
This makes
And
sense.
and so then is that then they went out, and that's the point where Piper came in and that transition happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long process. So
Yeah.
we then set up another M&A process
Yeah.
with Blanford, with new advisors, creating a new prospectus, lots of fireside chats, about 24
Yeah.
fireside chats, lots of
Am
presentations.
I right in saying that Japan's sovereign wealth fund are invested in some way now?
That's right, Tom. So that all ended up with Piper coming back to us, having seen us during the previous process.
Yeah.
Thought, well, now is probably the time. But with the Japan Sovereign Wealth Fund, called Japan Fund, having gotten wind that this was happening,
Got in touch
with Blanford actually directly, and then became involved in the process. And so we ended up with a really great situation where we've got a really good UK private equity Piper, who are brand led, B Corp, got travel experience, they've got a travel portfolio.
And their tagline is building brand legends. Yeah, we quite like the idea of being a brand legend, right?
Yeah, we can take that. We can live with that one.
Yeah, I can go and get behind that.
Indeed, exactly. So, and then Call Japan Fund, who are, a quasi-government organization, can get us some really good access in Japan. And obviously, that's our background. So really sort of a match made in heaven, really.
Yeah.
We couldn't have handpicked a better deal.
Yeah. It does sound
was
like a super
painful
mix,
to get there, and the journey of an M&A, like a kind of like process, an exit process, if you like, what do you call it, but is painful.
Well, and this was a much bigger process than the previous one. So we won't go into the financial details, but if your listeners are thinking about M&A and so on, there's a lot of prep that goes into it. So a lot of due diligence. You need a really solid financial business plan putting together, as well as the prospectus that's put together as well. And the whole process this time took us from September 2023 through to November 2024.
October 31st.
Right. Okay.
So
I guess that was where before I move on to some other topics, because there's so much other stuff to dive into with you. If you were to give 3 pieces of advice or takeaways from this experience that you've been through, from, I guess, having your hand forced into, hey, we need some investment here, to what sounds like, as you said, like a great position and a really strong set of partners who are supporting you, what would you say to people who are early in that journey, thinking about that journey, to think about, to consider?
Okay. All right, should we have a bit of tag team on this? You go first.
All right. Well, we already mentioned it, didn't we? But really good advisors that you can trust, advisors that you get on with, advisors that get you, listen, understand what you want to get out of this, and then we'll take that forward. So good advisors would be my first one.
Okay, my first one would be, have a really clear vision for your business. Know what you stand for, know where you're trying to get to, and know what counts. Understand your values, and because that's what people are investing in, that long-term vision of that's gonna ultimately deliver a return.
And then I'd say, you're going to be with this partner that you bring in for a significant amount of time. So it goes without saying, but choosing the right partner who's a good values match, who again gets your vision for the business, is absolutely critical. And taking your time, being determined to get that right partner is really important. And for us in the first process, we didn't really have that much choice.
No choice.
Yeah.
But in the second process, we did, to a greater extent. So I think, making sure you're taking your time, really understanding the partner that's coming in, and getting the right partner.
It's a general piece of business advice, but for this kind of scenario, absolutely critical. Invest in your finance team.
Okay.
You need a winning finance team, and the person who heads that up is an critical part of like your investment story. Our CFO, Andy Turner, is absolutely exceptional. We wouldn't have made it through COVID if we hired him during COVID. I can't believe he joined us in the middle of COVID. He took that punt on us. It just was the right time in his career. Came from Dyson, 10 years at Dyson, where he was a finance director there. That top level person who like just can bring that rigor and expertise and sharpness, just invaluable.
Yeah, great tips. Thank you for sharing all the insight and being so open about that process, because that's, it's something I'm incredibly interested in. And like I say, I'm sure there's lots of businesses out there who that might be something they're considering, and it's hard to sort of see behind the curtain a little bit. So yeah, really, really appreciate it. One of the things that you mentioned in there when it was all crumbling was the team being behind you. There's clearly a strong culture that you've built in the team, and that team has obviously grown into a lot of people. So could you give us a little bit of insight into how you've done that? And I'm also particularly interested in the sort of cross cultural nature of that. So growing a team internationally in lots of different places, different kinds of cultures, that feels like a challenging thing to do. It's hard to build a team of 20 people in Leeds. So yeah, doing what you've done is impressive. So I don't know, any support, insight, tips that you could give on how that's happened?
For the branches, we've had very good local leadership. So people that we feel really get the vision for the business, and will build really good local teams. So I think that's been a big advantage of ours over the years.
Like there's some things that knit it all together, right? They are different, and the cultures in each branch are different, inevitably, from, different national like cultures that people bring to the table. And, our Japan branch is certainly very different in feel to our UK branch. But there are things that like connect that we use as glue, I suppose. So we try and be very transparent as an organization. It's something you have to constantly work on. But we believe in sharing everything unless there's a specific reason not to, right? And then letting people know that you can't share that is important. We have to do better at that, because we tell the team that that's an important thing to us, and sometimes they call us out on it. And they're like, well, your comms has been a bit rubbish recently. And you're like, yeah, they're right. So you're always having to sort of return to those things. But I think the thing that we haven't talked about, and the thing that connects all our teams together and that drives our business forward, is positive impact. Like we're not in this game to like get rich or like make tons of cash, or that's not what drives us, right? We, from day one, have been about positive impact. We started out to share places that we love with people because we thought it would have a good impact on them. It would make them happy, and that it would improve their lives. And that was the driver from the start. And now we've really, really expanded that positive impact ethos and codified it, and really have like put that at the heart of our business.
Yeah, I mean, during the second M&A process, we identified the ITG formula, which we put down as specialism, customer obsession, and positive impact. And Alistair's exactly right. That's what's driven us from the start. And I think that's the great thing about travel. It's a really great industry to be in. It's got lots of challenges, of course, but at the end of the day, you're sharing destinations, experiences, places that you love with lots of people. You've got that amazing feedback coming through. You've also got the opportunity to make a really positive impact in those destinations as well. And then as now a medium-sized business, we have that opportunity in our local communities around each of the offices to make a positive impact too.
Yeah. There's yeah, obviously, you're preaching to the choir with this thing of if you have the mission and the vision behind your business and what you do and how you do it, that spans out into all areas, doesn't it? Whether it's sales, customers, but the team being a big part of that. That if they're bought into that, I think there is just this raised level of resilience and buy-in to what you're doing that, makes people work hard,
It's
makes people stick around.
like, Tom, nobody gets out of bed in the morning to make the investors in Piper private equity more money, right? It's not going to motivate anyone. Certainly not going to motivate me, right? It's important they make a return, but what motivates me is that I can see day in, day out, the positive, the way that like this business is just like the ripples go out further and further and further. And like the number of lives that like you're touching and like really making a difference to in all sorts of different ways is extraordinary. Like, I mean, one of the things we've really, I'll tell you a little story about like talking about our kind of local communities here in Bristol. This in 2025, we started working in a really like close fashion with an organization called Ablaze. And Ablaze is all about raising employment aspirations for young people. And they work right from young kids in schools up to people in their kind of like up to their mid-20s to help them explore ways to get into work, to fulfill their kind of work ambitions, obviously working often with people who've got challenging circumstances. So we were like, okay, how can we start to build this into our business model? Like, how can we build this into the way that we do things? How can we make sure that like things like work experience aren't just an add-on, they become how we do it, how we train our managers is to like, we're like, okay, well, we could set up training whereby, you can't, key part of being a manager here is that you have worked with like work experience people. This is future stuff, but we brought in some work experience kids from Ablaze. And one of those women who came in, very young woman, 19 years old, Katie, she did so well that we were able to offer her a month of this paid work placement, but we were able to offer another work placement, 1 month temporary contract. Like the feedback from her about how that raised her like ambition, her aspiration, gave her confidence that she could make her way in kind of the world of marketing, which was where she was trying to focus. Just extraordinary. And that's just one person.
Yeah.
And like,
I love that you've got the local Bristol aspect of it, because I think obviously in travel a lot of the time we're talking about the local communities on the ground in the destination and like the
that's
impact
right, yeah.
that people can have there. So it rings true with us with we've got a kind of home and away sort of thing of people on in Leeds who don't have a bed that we support, and then we have the charities in Nepal and Kenya that we support as well. And I think it's having that balance is a really nice part, and I haven't heard a lot of it in the industry. So it's great to hear that.
The local community bit is the hardest bit. Like, travel, we have biz built into it, isn't it? That like, yeah, we sell trips. And so we've got to work with loads of suppliers, and then we can choose suppliers who are like locally based, who money stays in the local community, and like where you've got like real, like strong community kind of license to operate in those areas. You can make all those plans and it's just naturally part of your product. But the impact that you have in your local communities around your offices, you have to really think about that, really give it consideration, and then try and build it into the way that you operate.
Time is absolutely flown by, and I'm conscious of it ticking along. I want to cover and ask you about how you have built and formed a strong relationship and partnership as co-founders, because I set the business up, but I run it with Claire, my wife, and I think I'm always fascinated by
challenging.
Well, it's got its ups and downs. Let's put it like that around the dinner table sometimes, but it's not an easy thing to form a relationship for 25 years running a business through the turmoil that you've been through as well, and come out the other side. So I'd be interested to hear from each of you kind of what you think has made that thing kind of last the course and be successful, and you still seem relatively happy in each other's company to sit here and talk to me about it.
You go first.
Yeah, Simon,
Okay.
you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I think trust and shared values are at the heart of it. And I think when you find somebody you can trust and you've got those shared values, that makes everything a lot easier. Beyond that, I think there is an element of being able to create separate spaces. So especially to keep a friendship going, to be able to create a workspace and a non-workspace. Now, inevitably, discussion of work comes into everything. This is what we do. But we can go to the pub and be more like friends, or go out, see a band, be more like friends than when we're here. So having those different spaces helps a lot.
Yeah, we went in Bath to see Suede last week. That was good.
Very nice. I love it. Still going.
It's still going, still putting out decent new records. Actually, it's quite shocking, really. I think the shared values thing is really, really important. The thing that when I hear about like business partnerships that fall apart, it is usually around a values misalignment. Like somebody is like hungrier for money than somebody else, or somebody wants a different lifestyle that isn't compatible, and therefore there's a unfairness about like how things are divided up. Like we've all heard those stories of like business partnerships that fall apart in quite acrimonious circumstances, but it all does come back to that lack of shared values and trust. For me, it's that kind of acceptance that like, sometimes you'll put in more, sometimes they'll put in more. We've got different skills, very different skills. Like if you look at our like DISC personality profiles and like preference profiles, they're opposites, right? They are genuinely opposites. Like Simon's much more over the detail than I am, much more fastidious, much more conscientious than I am. But I'm like much sharper on like the kind of expansive creative side of things. And so that willingness to listen to one another and to play off each other's strengths and to see it as a partnership, I think that really, really helps and really makes a difference. And Simon's got a very high amount of patience to put up with it. So
I suppose we both also got pretty thick skins. We're pretty determined, and also we don't dwell on stuff. I think stuff happens, right? And you might have an argument, but something will happen that's difficult in the business, but you don't let it get you down or keep you down.
Yeah.
It was yesterday, right?
Yeah. So you learn to move on and focus on what's important ahead of you, and move on and move towards that. And I think that is really important.
I mean, go.
I was going to say, have you had any moments where it's come close to combustion?
And not sort of in a like critical. Okay, let's go our separate ways.
Yeah.
Thing. Obviously, we've had arguments.
You're not right.
Oh, right. Okay.
No.
Was that the one?
This is the one.
You create one.
Yes. Yeah. We have not had arguments.
We've never like really argued about any of like the big decisions and things like that. Like we've always just have a conversation about that, and we've always been very aligned on like ways forward and things like that. You squabble about small things, but ultimately those don't matter, right? So you can just let them go. I think like if you want to talk about the kind of personal, like, people, your personal life and your family life and stuff and develops. And, I remember like when like Simon's now wife was first like, that relationship was first starting. And I really felt like he didn't really want to do it anymore. That's what I felt like, because he and obviously you're more concerned with this thing over here, right? And I remember we did sit down in the hotel of that. So do you actually want to do this anymore? And Si said, look, yeah, I do. But that was done.
Yeah.
But it was being able to have that conversation matters, right? And that's the only time where I've ever felt like maybe that. I was like,
Yeah, is the alignment changing?
I had that moment of doubt, but that's the only time.
Yeah. But what's great there as well is, as you haven't mentioned it as a thing, but it clearly comes through when you're talking about it, is the communication side of things. You mentioned transparency earlier, and I guess it sounds like that has clearly been the case with you both throughout, where you're talking to each other and you're sharing where you're at with stuff. And I think that's also a massive part of it. It's not too dissimilar to a marriage, is it? It's like being open.
Don't go there. Don't go there. I think Gary, our coach, has helped us as well. That like I'm really, really poor at thinking about the future. One of the things Action Coach make you do is think about the future. What do you want? What do you want the future to be like? I have this kind of saying that there's one thing you can guarantee about the future is that it will arrive. And how it shows up depends on how you think about it, So that input from Action Coach has helped me, and I think Simon as well, to really think about the future. And then bringing in investors, they make you think about the future as well. Because they're like, well, what's next for you guys? We're like, hang on a minute, you've only just come in. Yeah, but we need to know what's next in 5 years' time.
Tell us about that then. What is the plan? What is the 5-year view?
Well, we've got some really exciting plans with new destinations for the Inside Asia brand this year.
Should we give them a hot exclusive?
We can give you an exclusive. Yes. Yeah. So we're going to be launching Taiwan.
Amazing.
Going to be fantastic. We've got a really brilliant product manager, Grant, who's working on that at the moment.
He's out in the US, so that's primarily US focused, but
and then we're going to be launching Sri Lanka, which is we launched India last year. Sri Lanka is a fantastic destination. Alistair had a family holiday there.
I did. It was for a lot of fun. Yeah,
last.
I've been. So it's a beautiful place. Yeah,
that is really exciting to be launching those new countries. We're continuing to promote our undervisited destinations in Japan, which are some destinations that we are working with who want more tourists, have got the capacity to have more tourists, and it'll be a real benefit to them to have more people travel there off the beaten track places that we're really investing in. We managed to double the room nights that we have there last year. We're looking to do that again this year with those destinations as well. So really, really exciting developments on the product side coming up.
I had under tourism as something sort of bookmarked for conversation, but I think given time is short, we can't delve. But
that's the next one. So
I would encourage exactly. We can do that on round 2. But I'd encourage. But you've talked about it a little bit in other places, so people can go and have a look at that. And I've had other conversations with people who over tourism obviously is a big challenge and problem from a sustainability point of view. That was another thing I had bookmarked with you, and a quote that you had about sustainable tourism, which I also think is interesting. But we'll tee that one up for next time as well. For now, to kind of land the plane a little bit, I always ask people what advice they would give to someone who was thinking about setting up a business in travel, tourism, hospitality in some way. Yeah. Looking back at that 25 years that you've had, if you were going to give a piece of advice to someone in that position, what would you recommend? Let's do one each again.
Go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say, do it.
So this is one of the things we have learned is you've got to take action. Yeah. Nothing happens if you don't take action. A good idea is a good idea, but it doesn't become real until you take action. So go for it. It's depending on your life stage where you're at, that can be more difficult, less difficult. We were fortunate because we were in our early 20s.
We had time.
No dependence. We had time, so we just went for it. But I think go for it. I think for us, it was somewhere it was a type of holiday and a type of destination that we were incredibly passionate about, excited by. But at the end of the day, we decided, yeah, we're going to do it.
Love
And we
that.
did it.
I
Alistair?
mean, that's it, isn't it? That's it, because
Just do it. Yeah.
like, so many great ideas die on the fear of action, right? And Simon's right. If you're a bit older, it's harder. If you've got a mortgage and kids and responsibilities and a leased vehicle and all that kind of stuff, you have a requirement to maintain probably a certain amount of income, and then it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
Then you have to perhaps take a more rigorous scientific approach to what you're doing, really research the market, really understand like those areas where you can win. You know, it's that kind of where to play, how to win stuff, right? When you're younger, don't hesitate. Just get on board, get going.
You said early on, just do what you think is right, which I scribbled down furiously here. And I think your story is a very inspirational one for people who are sat in that position of, you can just, and that being 25 plus years ago, where it was probably harder than it is now. The tools are out there, the internet's out there, there's, AI answering all your questions around this, that, and everything. Like, there's so many tools out there that I think facilitates that to happen, if you do decide to take action. So it's been great to hear about your story and kind of all the background and how you've got to where it is now. It's like I say, it's an inspirational thing for me to I'm tangential to this, but just as a business owner, in the sector, to see what you've done with it and what you've been through, it's just great. So I appreciate you coming and spending the time.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Tom. It's always we like talking about our business. So.
Well, you're very good at it. You're very good at it. Maybe is there anything else that you think is worth mentioning? Like I say, there was a few other topics I could have gone into, but is there anything else that you'd like to share before I let you go that you think it's worth people hearing, or you want to let people know about?
I think we've covered a lot. I think we've learned a lot over 25 years. So probably the other bit of advice we'd say to people is be open to learning, take good advisors, get a coach. If you want to
read some books,
if you want to be a really great athlete, you get a coach, right? Yeah. So it's the same in this. Read some books, learn, be open to that. We've done that, but probably more latterly than at the start. Learning more through experience.
Any particular books you would recommend? Any standout things you've read?
Okay, I, from a kind of like marketing, brand, and like positioning standpoint, I really like a book called Grow by Jim Stengel, who was he's kind of head of marketing at P&G back in the day. But that's a fantastic read. Really like digging into like different brands and like what they built their success on. That's one. And Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by I've forgotten.
Look it up, folks.
Look it up.
I can
Good
find
Strategy,
that.
Bad
Yeah,
Strategy, and how to tell the difference.
It's available.
I'll put it in the show notes.
That is absolutely like winning seminal text on strategy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think another one we've been inspired for. Good to Great. Another one, it's one of the classics out there.
Yeah, and Jim Collins, that one.
That's the one, yeah. And then the sort of business system one that we were introduced to by our coach, Traction. The entrepreneurial operating system is well worth a read as well, especially when you're setting up.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I guess my final thing I would say is, like, if you haven't booked your holiday for the year yet, definitely get in touch. Like,
if you fancy Taiwan, it's coming.
Don't delay. Don't delay booking that holiday. Something to look forward to.
Yeah, well, I know for our family, Japan is high on the list. We've got a lot of Japan enthusiasts in our team, and they've been tooting that horn for a long time. So that's definitely, I'll be picking up the phone to you when we're ready for that one. But I've been to a few of the places that, Sri Lanka, been to Burma, and echo what you've been saying. These are fantastic places, great adventures, great cultures. Yeah. So if anyone listening is thinking about that, you know where to go.
That's right.
Where is the best place to follow you? Like, in terms of you guys personally, do you share much? Is LinkedIn the place to go? Like, and then give us the URL of the website as well. So if people are listening, they know where to go.
So we are InsideJapanTours.com and InsideAsiaTours.com. We do a bit on LinkedIn, not a whole load personally, but you'll find some good updates from the company.
Yeah.
You can find us on X, Facebook, all the normal places, but come to the website. It's InsideJapanTours.com, InsideAsiaTours.com.
I have to confess that from a personal standpoint, I'm not on any social media other than LinkedIn, and I don't really post. I'm not much of a self-publicist, I have to say.
Yeah. Too
Well
busy.
done for this.
So well done for my
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've snuck you in the back door. Yeah. Well, listen, it's you got to go out there and have some real life experiences, haven't you? That's where the fun's at, isn't it? So yeah. Listen, thank you both for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time and giving us all the background and being so open. And catch up with you soon.
Fantastic.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Thanks both. And there you have it. Big thanks to Simon and Alistair for joining us on the podcast. I've heard them speaking at a variety of events and sharing their story and how they've grown the business. And it didn't disappoint being able to get into a few more of the details of what they've done and how they've built such a fantastic business. So I hope you enjoyed it too. If you want to access the resources and other information from that episode or from other episodes, go to north9.agency/podcast and you'll find that and all the other episodes that we've done there as well. And if you're a business in travel or hospitality looking for marketing support, then drop us a line and we'd love to find out more about you and see if we can help. You can also read more about our 100% initiative on the website, where we share the story behind how we give all the profit we make from our work with clients to educational charities and try our best to have a positive impact with the work that we do together. Loads more coming in season 3. Loads of great stuff on the site already from seasons 1 and 2. I hope you have enjoyed it and enjoyed that episode. And in the meantime, stay safe, keep exploring, and happy travels.